Can you imagine? I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a moment and then try and remember that picture, that unique picture of the world taken from space. Do you remember the one, the world as a blue mark? Can you just close your eyes and try and imagine that? Because for centuries, for millennia, human beings were looking at the world as if it were flat, and then far, far, far above were all the stars and constellations. And then came the moment where we had, how can one put it, a God's eye view of the world, and we saw it as a beautiful, beautiful marble, blue and white with just a hint of green. And that's the world we're privileged to live in, a speck of dust in the universe or multi-universes. That's the focus of our session now. Open your eyes, please. You know how the Bible begins. You do? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and what he made was good, very good. And he chose one species to take care of planet Earth. I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Have you imagined if he'd chosen other species? Crocodiles, elephants, lions, lambs. He chose one species to take care of planet Earth. So what we call history has a thread running through it that records how well human beings have done in going about this divinely appointed task. And it's been a patchy performance at best. But now, uniquely in the history of the planet, humans are putting at risk their own survival on planet Earth. Some are calling the geological age in which we live the Anthropocene, the period where human footprints are so heavy that the world may not be able to sustain humankind for much longer. Over the centuries, human civilizations have caused the land and its species to suffer. The Bible is a remarkable record of this, one record. But this is the first time that all human activity, that is work and play, tourism, marketing, technological devices, and our way of life in general, are combining to produce a perfect storm. But at the same time, remarkably, we're blessed to live in an age when information technology means that we can calculate all this and chart how best to go about changing the current course that leads to destruction. Sadly, governments, organizations, institutions, and individuals have not yet managed to change enough. And the adults who run the world, politicians, economists, academics, are driven by short-term goals and objectives. A famous economist said, in the long run, we're all dead. But that is not a very good response to our children and children's children. It's beginning to dawn on some of us that this may well be where children can, will, and must take the lead. After all, it is their futures that are more at risk than ours. Quite often I ask people who are working for me or for organizations, will you give me a lifetime guarantee for this work? And they look at me and say, yes, very happily. But if it were my grandchildren, would you give us a lifetime guarantee? Oh, that's different, because their life is longer than ours. Who is going to galvanize the necessary change for the survival of our species, given, as Mr. Macron put it so beautifully, there is no planet B? I believe that when the UN Assembly in May 2002 invited children on that special occasion into its deliberations, that Kofi Annan was right, and that since the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, with the remarkable accident I only learnt about today, that it was caused to be agreed by applause. Slowly, adults are beginning to listen to children, at least sometimes and in parts. And today is a telling example of that process. And this session is one where the churches are seeking to listen to children and young people and amplify their voices. So I'm going to ask first Kiran if he'll come. Are you happy to come here, Kiran? Is this the place? Are you happy to stand here? Yeah? Where would you like to be? Yeah. Would you like to? I'd like you to be comfortable wherever you are. Okay.
Looks like a nice couch.
Okay, very good. A nice couch. Just get the microphone comfortably so you're there. Okay. You've come to hear children and young people speak. I just want to say one thing about Kiran. He's going to tell us about something quite dramatic that's happened in the last 3-4 years. And I was talking to him last night and was talking about how in Silicon Valley, the leaders, the executives of the big IT firms are sending their children to Waldorf Steiner schools, where there are no electronic devices, because they want their children to learn to be tactile, and in my view, learn like Rousseau, to think for themselves, to explore for themselves. And Kiran started smiling, and went on more broadly and said to me, do you know what school I went to? The answer was, of course, a Waldorf school. So you're a credit to Waldorf schools as well. Kiran, over to you.
All right. Hello. Let's see. I have a couple of slides. We can see if this works. But it's really a pleasure to be here. Oh, nice. Okay. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's an honor. So many people have put in so much work to organizing this event, and I just want to thank them all for that. And I also want to say it's an honor to be alongside and speak on the same couch as all of these other young folks who are standing up for and speaking out for the different movements. I heard when Anouk first heard who she was speaking with, she was a bit perhaps nervous and was like, wow, that's so big. But I think we need to kind of deconstruct what big is, because I don't think big exists. I think big is just a bunch of little things. And I think for young folks and for everyone, like, we can only, there's little things that we do, and sometimes those little things lead up to a big thing, and sometimes those little things just stay as little things and help us build our integrity inside, and that's all important. So I want to start with that sentiment. Anyway, so my name is Kiran Oommen, as you know. I'm 21 years old. I am a student. I am a musician, and I'm a plaintiff on Juliana versus U.S., the landmark youth climate change lawsuit against the U.S. federal government. So this case is, first off, who else is involved in this case? These are the other plaintiffs. I am one of 21 youth, the youngest being Levi, who you can see on the left middle with the afro. He's only 11 years old. When we filed this case, he was 7 years old. I was 18. This case has been going on for 3.5 years, and the basis of our case is that we are youth and we are being affected by climate change right now, and we will disproportionately be affected by climate change in the future, as Keith mentioned, because we will be here longer than you. And more importantly, the government and the corporations who are the biggest players in causing and perpetrating climate change. So our claim is that we are being hurt, we have been hurt, and we will continue to be hurt by the actions that the government has taken to exacerbate climate change. Many people get confused and think that it's about, the government hasn't done enough, or, the government hasn't stopped climate change, but that doesn't hold up in the courts, because there's no responsibility for them. However, there is a responsibility for them to protect our fundamental rights to a stable climate and a stable future. And that, we claim, is established in the U.S. Constitution. So the government's actions to support the fossil fuel industry, to subsidize, fossil fuels, to increase infrastructure for the past 60-some years has been a significant contributor to climate change, and therefore a significant contributor to the harm that we are facing right now. What we're asking for is a science-based climate recovery plan, and what that means is we need a plan that will set us on a goal for stabilizing the climate. That doesn't mean, putting a few solar panels here. That doesn't mean, the Clean Air Act that the Obama administration put in, which was a good thing, but it didn't set us on a plan to stabilize the climate. And we are consulting the top climatologists in the world to come up with a plan of how we can do that. And the legal details and the scientific details are complex, and if you want to learn more about those, you should probably talk to me afterwards. But I want to talk about how this relates to the church. Oh, yeah, that was a slide. I wasn't really planning to use these slides, so I'll just kind of skip through them. But one other important part is like, how is this happening? How is this coming about? So Our Children's Trust is a law nonprofit based in Eugene, Oregon, and they are representing us in the courts. And they are a grassroots movement, all being entirely supported by donations. So this has been a lawsuit, and this has been a people's movement. And that I don't think either of those are more important. And we have had so much support, and so much, as you see, the news has covered us a lot, and also people have, come out of the woodworks to support our case and to support this platform for the youth to speak out about climate change. Now we get on to the church stuff. So my connection to the church was through my family, actually. I come from a long line of pastors, and my mom is a minister in the U.S. United Church of Christ. So I was raised in the church. I went to church every Sunday. I was a preacher's kid. Perhaps some of you can relate to that. I think it is a particular experience. And in the UCC church, in the United Church of Christ, social justice is a core tenet of what it means to be church, of what it means to be community. And that meant that I was raised in what I call a community of passion, where the purpose of being together was to focus on making the world a better place, making our community a better place, and making the global community a better place. So for me, I don't like to call myself an activist. Many people call themselves activists. I don't like to call myself an activist because I feel like that makes it a particular identity. Some people are activists, some people are not. What I learned growing up in the church is that we all have a responsibility to contribute to the whole. Some parents, teach their children, you have to go to school, you get a job, you get a house, you raise a family, that's your life. For me, I learned that, yes, it's important to do all those things, but on a larger scale, what's important is to invest in community, because that's what gives you a deeper meaning to life. So from a young age, I invested in community. I invested in social justice work, in environmentalism, and in fighting for human rights in any way that I could. This was, many different ways, from, soup kitchens to like homeless shelters at our church, to going to protests, to marching on the streets. And this, I was involved in felt a connection to so many different social justice movements that I never saw the distinction between activist and non-activist. And yeah, it's those values that have inspired me to be where I am now. And this value, we have a name for it, and we call it mutual aid. And that is the concept that giving is inherently beneficial not only to yourself, but to the whole. And like when I do something nice for someone, I don't call it that. When I go to a protest, when I go to the soup kitchen, I'm not like, okay, I'm going to go help those people because I'm a good person. I recognize that investing in community will make the community stronger as a whole. But the church, and an example of that is the church has given back. The United Church of Christ has really stepped up when they realized my involvement with this case and my connection to the UCC and to the church community as well. They got particularly interested because the UCC has already been involved, and many churches have already been involved in climate work, which is very important. But this was a specific, we are doing a specific thing, and with specific actions, it gives the opportunity for specific ways of supporting. So the UCC has started this program through the national organization called Justice for Each Generation, and this is a call for more than 1,000 sermons in solidarity with the youth awakening a nation to climate action. What this has meant is for the past year, churches all across the country have set aside Sundays to talk about our case and the climate movement and the importance of environmentalism for the youth in general. And a big part, I think what has been the most exciting part about this movement for me is many of the people who have preached on these particular Sundays have been youth. And the church, in showing solidarity with the youth, means giving them a voice. And for me personally, I've spoken and been asked to speak at churches all around the country, and I will continue to do that as I'm very honored that people, want to listen to my perspective, and I also recognize that we need to be listening, and that's something I think the church does very well, is listening to these perspectives, and they have a platform already created. They have an infrastructure. An infrastructure of solidarity is what the church can provide to these movements because they already have people listening. And a lot for us in the case, when we filed the case, it came from a law background. The case wasn't implemented by the church. But we, like our Children's Trust and us involved in the case, have had to build this platform. And that's really good work. It's very important. But we also need to recognize that the church has already done that. And so it's just about using that and putting it to where it should be, where it can most benefit the community. And that is a way that all of us, but particularly those of us in church communities, can very easily stand in solidarity with youth and all marginalized people. So how else can the churches support? This case is important legally. Okay, yeah, I already kind of talked about that, sorry. So as in line with this infrastructure of solidarity I was talking about, the churches also have a reach. They have people, listening not only in particular congregations, but in the entire world. I'm very, honored and privileged to be speaking here in a place where people from all over the world. I don't think I mentioned, but I'm from Seattle, Washington. I've traveled 11 hours by plane to get here. And I know many other people have also traveled far, and many people are, perhaps listening online or perhaps will. And so that kind of platform is really important for this case because, as I mentioned earlier, this case is a movement. It's not just about the law. The law is what the courts are what we're using to check the power of the U.S. government because it is harming us and it is not being held accountable. And so that's what we're trying to do. But it's also important for us to build a movement around this. Good. I just have a little. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the last thing that I think is important to talk about is there's ways for us all to contribute in individual ways. There's, as I mentioned, mutual aid, solidarity, and also direct action. I think part of the movement of this case is that we can march on the streets too. Like, not all of us can go to the courts, but all of us can participate in direct action. That means taking into our hands the power that we have as the people. And this is a tradition of democracy, and this is a tradition of Christianity. Jesus himself, there's many, many passages where Jesus talked about, he saw something that was wrong, he spoke up and he did something about it. He flipped the tables in the temple where they were, selling things in a religious space. He's like, that's not how this is supposed to go. And in the world, sometimes things are wrong and we need to change them immediately, and sometimes we need to go through the courts, but sometimes we don't have time. And with climate change, I think we need to be doing everything we possibly can. And what that means is practicing mutual aid, solidarity, and direct action. Thank you.
Just a suggestion, I think most of you have got programs for today. Why not ask the children and young people to sign them so you've got a copy of their names on them? There is a challenge. Would you join, would the churches, would the WCC join this movement? Just so you know, if you go online, you'll find everything there, but Kiran can tell you face to face. Now, Anouk, you're ready to come? Please do. Are you going to come and stand here? That's where you like to be. Okay. Just to say, one of the things Kiran said was that big is made up of lots of small things. And something we're now going to see is if you put what Kiran has said together and what Anouk is going to say, you have exactly a demonstration of just that. Anouk comes from West Switzerland, near the wonderful and beautiful Bodensee.
Herzlich willkommen effizienten Umweltschutz und die Rolle der Kirche.
Welcome to my presentation on Uniting the Church and the Environment, Possibilities for the Effective Protection of the Environment and the Role of the Church.
Ich heiße Anouk Walliser und bin 13 Jahre alt.
My name is Anouk Walliser and I'm almost 14.
Ich engagiere mich seit langem für die Umwelt und bin in der Kirche als Oberministrantin tätig.
I've been involved with the environment for a long time and am a senior acolyte in the church.
Dabei habe ich vor allem eins gelernt, dass man alleine etwas erreichen kann, aber zusammen geht es besser.
I've learned one thing above all. Although you can achieve something on your own, it is better to do things together.
Ich habe meinen Vortrag in 3 Teile gegliedert.
I've divided my presentation into 3 parts.
Erstens, was man alleine schaffen kann.
First, what one can do alone.
Zweitens, wofür es große Organisationen braucht.
2, one needs large organizations.
Und drittens, wie man als Einzelperson in einer mittleren Organisation, nämlich einer Kirchgemeinde, viel erreichen kann.
And 3, how one as an individual in a medium-sized organization, more specifically a church community, can achieve many things.
Wir kommen zum ersten Thema, was man alleine schaffen kann.
We will now examine the first topic, what one can do alone.
Dazu ein Beispiel aus meiner Kindheit.
Here is an example from my childhood.
Zusammen mit 3 anderen Kindern machte ich 2014 im Alter von 9 Jahren eine Standaktion und wir konnten stolze 717 Franken einem örtlichen Naturschutzbund und dem WWF spenden.
Together with 3 other children, I conducted a stand campaign in 2014 at the age of 9. We were able to donate the considerable sum of 717 francs to a local nature conservation association and to the WWF.
Wir dachten damals, wir hätten gerade die Welt gerettet, wenigstens ein klein wenig.
At the time, we thought that we had just saved the world, well, at least a little bit.
Auf jeden Fall waren wir sehr, sehr stolz auf uns.
In any case, we were very, very proud of ourselves.
Knappe 2 Jahre später stieß ich in einem WWF-Magazin auf einen Artikel über Palmöl und Orang-Utans und langsam begann ich, die größeren Zusammenhänge zu begreifen.
Almost 2 years later, I came across an article about palm oil and orangutans in a WWF magazine, and I slowly started to understand the big picture.
Ich wurde wütend, weil irgendwelche Leute das Gefühl hatten, sie könnten einfach die Wälder abholzen.
I got angry because some people thought they could just clear entire forests.
Ich wurde wütend, weil es Leute gab, die nur an das Geld dachten und an sich selbst.
I got angry because there were people who just thought about money and themselves.
Ich wollte etwas tun.
I wanted to do something.
Also gestaltete ich einen Flyer, der die Leute in meinem Umfeld dazu aufrufen sollte, kein Palmöl zu unterstützen und zu kaufen.
So I created a flyer that urged people around me not to buy or support palm oil.
Den Flyer habe ich in der Kirchgemeinde, in der Schule und bei Nachbarn verteilt.
I distributed the flyer in the parish, at school, and among my neighbors. And the content of this, it's help the orangutans. Many products such as ready meals, margarine, chocolates, cosmetics, and detergents contain palm oil from rainforest. We would like to ask you not to buy these products. This is because orangutans and many other creatures die due to palm oil plantations and because rainforests are cleared for these plantations. You can help by not buying any products with palm oil, which is often declared on packaging as vegetable oil.
Eine weitere Möglichkeit, alleine etwas zu bewirken, indem man sich bei Großverteilung für biologische, fair produzierte Produkte einsetzt.
Another way to make a difference on your own is to advocate organic, fairly produced products to major distributors by simply letting them know that you value such products.
Indem man einfach einmal hinterlegt, dass man Wert auf solche Produkte legt.
And the important thing here is to let them know that you're really interested in these products.
Ein gutes Beispiel ist das neue Bio-Nocciolata.
A good example is the new organic nocciolata,
Als fair produzierter Schokobrotaufstrich und erst noch ohne Palmöl.
This is available at Migros as a fairly produced substitute for Nutella, and it also contains no palm oil.
Versuchen Sie es einmal. Es ist meiner Meinung nach sogar noch besser als das Original.
Try it out. It's even better than the original in my opinion, and in the opinion of the interpreter and his 5 grandchildren.
Auch hier ist es einfach, etwas zu bewirken. E-Mail schreiben, senden, fertig.
Here too, it's easy to do something. Write an email, send it, done.
Nun komme ich zum zweiten Teil.
I now come to the second part.
Man kann als Einzelperson im Kleinen etwas erreichen, aber um viel oder gar weltweit etwas zu erreichen, braucht es große Organisationen.
You can achieve something as an individual on a small scale, but to achieve many things or to do so worldwide, you need big organizations.
Wir wissen alle, was WWF, Greenpeace, Brot für alle und so weiter bewegen können.
We all know what WWF, Greenpeace, Pro Natura, and so on can do.
Ich werde deshalb hier nicht näher darauf eingehen.
So I won't examine that here.
Nur so viel. Es ist wichtig, dass sich auch Kirchen für die Bewahrung der Schöpfung einsetzen.
I will only say that it is important that the churches too work for the preservation of creation.
Sei es via Fastenopfer, Brot für alle, sei es indem Kirchgemeinden vor Ort die Umweltzerstörung thematisieren.
Whether it be through the aid organizations Fastenopfer or Bread for All, or by having church communities talk about environmental destruction.
Aber manchmal braucht es eine Verbindung zwischen dem kleinen Ich und der großen Welt.
But sometimes you need a link between the little me and the big world.
Das kann zum Beispiel die Kirchgemeinde sein.
This can be the parish.
Und damit komme ich zum dritten Teil.
And this brings me to my third part.
In der Kirchgemeinde können einzelne Personen in einem größeren, aber überschaubaren Ganzen viel bewirken.
In the parish, individuals can do a lot within a bigger but still manageable whole.
Eine Kirchgemeinde ist klein genug, um als Einzelperson viel Einfluss nehmen zu können.
Parishes are small enough so that one individual can exert a lot of influence.
Aber auch groß genug, um Hunderte oder Tausende Personen zu erreichen.
But they're also big enough so you can reach hundreds or thousands of people.
Oder, um den Bereich Umweltschutz zu nehmen, wenige Leute können viel für die Umwelt tun, wenn sie in ihrer Kirchgemeinde den Hebel ansetzen.
For environmental protection, this means that a few people can do a lot for the environment if they use the levers available in their parish.
Wie das aussehen kann, möchte ich Ihnen anhand des Öko-Labels grüner Gückel zeigen.
I would like to show you how this can be done through the example of the eco-label Grüner Gögel, or Green Rooster in English.
Der grüne Gückel ist ein Gütesiegel, das den Kirchgemeinden bei der Planung und Umsetzung eines individuellen Umweltprogramms hilft.
The Green Rooster is a seal of quality that helps parishes plan and implement individual environmental programs.
Eine Arbeitsgruppe vor Ort arbeitet einen Plan zur Verbesserung des ökologischen Fußabdrucks aus.
A local working group draws up a plan to improve the ecological footprint.
Dabei erhält sie Unterstützung von einem externen Experten.
While doing so, it gets support from an external expert.
Zusammen findet man Schwachstellen und anschließend Strategien, wie sie möglichst umweltbewusst ausgebessert werden können.
Together, they look for weaknesses and work out strategies to remedy them in the most environmentally aware way possible.
Am Schluss dieses Prozesses wird von einem unabhängigen Experten geprüft, ob das Ziel erreicht wurde.
At the end of this process, an independent expert checks to see if the aim has been achieved.
Fällt diese Prüfung positiv aus, wird das Label grüner Gückel oder in Deutschland grüner Gockel verliehen.
If the result is positive, the Green Rooster, Grüner Gögel, or in Germany it's known as the Grüne Gockel label, is awarded.
Beispiele aus meiner Pfarrei.
Some examples from my parish.
Hier sehen Sie Beispiele zur Biodiversität.
Here you can see some examples up on the screen of biodiversity in my parish.
Und zu den erneuerbaren Energien.
And also under the heading of renewable energy, some more examples.
In 5 Schritten zum Zertifikat.
So these are the 5 steps for getting this certificate.
Als erstes wird eine Bestandsaufnahme durchgeführt.
First of all, you examine the current status.
Dann wird ein Umweltprogramm ausgearbeitet
Then you work out an environmental program,
und dann wird eine Strategie festgelegt.
and then you develop a strategy.
Dann wird es ausgeführt und kontrolliert.
The strategy is then implemented, and then afterwards you control to make sure that everything is in order.
Das klingt jetzt etwas theoretisch, aber praktisch sieht es so aus, dass 5 bis 10 Leute sich zusammentun, ihre Kirchgemeinde analysieren und dann gemeinsam mit den Verantwortlichen ökologisch auf Vordermann bringen.
All this might sound a little bit theoretical, but here's how it works in practice. 5 to 10 people get together, analyze their parish, and then, together with the responsible persons, get the parish environmentally shipshape.
Das sind Leute wie ich, wie Sie, normale Pfarreimitglieder, denen die Umwelt am Herzen liegt.
It's people like me and you, ordinary parishioners who care about the environment, who can do this.
Damit komme ich zum Schluss meines Vortrags.
And this brings me to the end of my presentation.
Vielleicht interessiert es Sie, weshalb ich als 14-Jährige einen Vortrag über Umweltschutz und die Kirche halte. Es gibt einen Grund. Ich glaube, dass ich etwas erreichen kann. Ich glaube, dass jeder Einzelne die Welt ein klein wenig zum Guten wenden kann. Davor braucht man eine gewisse Stärke und Gemeinschaft, die einen fängt, wenn man fällt. Und diese Gemeinschaft ist für mich die Kirche. Denn alleine kann man etwas erreichen, aber zusammen geht es besser.
And the text up on the screen, maybe you're interested why I, a 14-year-old girl, am doing a presentation on environmental protection in the church. There's a reason for this. I believe that I can achieve something. I believe that every one of us can make the world a little better. For this you need strength and a community that can catch you if you fall. And this community for me is the church, because alone you can achieve something, but it's better if you work together. Thank you.
Go and sit with Kiran. Good. Oma and Opa, you're here. What a privilege to be here with your granddaughter, sharing like that. Your hearts must be beating. Just a very good example of how big and small combine. Just in the front row here, there is a formidable pair, Caterina and Frederic. Now, we can talk about the World Council of Churches and UNICEF, but unless the chemistry works, then it doesn't work. Well, it does. I've seen these two operate together. I'm seeing it now. There we are. Caterina, come and just reflect. So from UNICEF, and part of the Church's commitment to children process.
Thank you very much, Kit. So, today we are celebrating World Children's Day, and at UNICEF what we do when we celebrate World Children's Day is to actually go blue. So if you could please show a picture of how I was planning to show up here today, but then they told me that I should at least try and, appear professional. So I gave up, and I am wearing this very professional blue. Okay, you can. Thank you. Enough humiliation. So, good morning, everyone, again, and thank you for being here. So what I want to tell you about today is the following: the fact that the work of UNICEF and that of the UN as a whole on climate change is based on the recognition that not only this threat, and very serious threat, can undermine the gains that we have achieved so far in terms of child survival and development, but most importantly, it is based on the recognition that Climate change and environmental degradation are a fundamental violation of the rights of every child. And these include the right to survival. It includes the right to a healthy environment, to education, to adequate nutrition, and to live free from violence. The right to survival because climate-caused catastrophes destroy hospitals, and also because the rising temperatures increase the likelihood of transmission of airborne and vector-borne diseases. The right to live in a healthy environment and to access to drinkable water and proper sanitation, because also, of course, droughts undermine the availability of drinking water and also affect the availability of sanitary facilities. The right to education, because similarly schools are destroyed sometimes, or otherwise learning is otherwise disrupted. And this is particularly true for girls that are particularly affected. The right to adequate nutrition, because of course droughts affect the availability of food, and we all know the strong link that there is between gender and undernutrition, when 60% of undernourished people are women and female. And finally, the right to live free from violence, because of course the scarcity of natural resources only exacerbates the arising of conflicts, and children are the ones suffering the most from that. And also climate change exacerbates existing inequalities because it inevitably disproportionately affects people who are the poorest and the most marginalized and the more vulnerable. In many areas, drought areas and flood areas are those that are inhabited by the poorest communities, those who lack the means to actually face these big challenges. UNICEF recognizes that faith communities are particularly well placed to face this threat that humanity is posing to itself, actually. We think that there is a lot that you can do to address this threat. And you can do it as churches, as faith communities, you can do it in different ways, by looking at the way you use your assets, such as, for example, including the land you own and the property. Two concrete examples are the Taoists in China have installed solar panels in all the Taoist temples throughout China. And the Church of England has pledged to reduce its carbon footprint by 42% by 2020 and by 80% by 2050. You can do it in the way you educate young people. In 2006 alone, something like 250,000 Baha'i were trained, attended schools on environment education. And you can do it in the way you provide a theological foundation for the duty to care for creation. Since 2007, the Armenian Orthodox Church has trained all the theology students on nature protection and on energy. You can do it in the way, in your own lifestyle and the lifestyle that you promote. Jain youth organizations have since a long time promoted non-meat diets. And there is an organization called Green Pilgrimage, which works with major pilgrimage cities worldwide to develop a model in which they can host all these pilgrims that come at the same time in their cities, looking at issues such as their travel, the water, the waste management, the use of energy, and the food supplies. And finally, you can do it through advocacy. There is a Confucian saying that I like that says, first practice what you preach and then preach what you practice. In 2014, the World Council of Churches and Religions for Peace organized an Interfaith Summit on climate in New York along the intergovernmental climate summit that was going on. And that was to highlight and showcase the specific contribution of faith communities to the international climate change debate. So these are all very, I think, good examples of what faith communities can do concretely. But, and yes, there is a but, they do not necessarily take into account children and young people. So we do have an opportunity now to reverse these dangerous trends in terms of climate and environment. But this means not only taking a decisive action in terms of cutting greenhouse emission, but I think most importantly, it means to protect children whose families have been displaced because of climate and prioritize children in our response to climate. It means to educate children because they are the ones that are facing and will be more and more facing the immediate consequence of climate disasters. But above all, it means listening to children and young people because they are the ones who will inherit the planet that we share. And it means giving them the tools to become agents of change. So we have heard from Kiran and Anouk just now 2 inspiring examples of what children and adolescents can do and how they can be the actors of change, from pushing their parents to purchase in a responsible way, to organize their neighborhoods and their communities, and to bringing it to the next level, daring to to challenge very powerful entities, as Kiran and our Children's Trust did. So I particularly love the point that Anouk raised, that the churches are the ideal link between the small me and the bigger world. And because she said that churches are small enough so that an individual can exert actually a lot of influence, but they are big enough so that they can reach to hundreds, if not thousands of people. I think that this really reflects very much the spirit of the Church's commitments to children, which recognize that children and young people are agents of change, and they can be the ones coming up with solutions that actually can help save humanity. And the Church's commitments are calling churches not only to be more environmentally friendly, but above all, they are calling churches to recognize children's agency so that we help them be the change that we so much need. Thank you.
I made the point about getting people's signatures, and I've got Anouk's and Kiran's here. This may be an historic document. Just as we come to lunch, I'd like you to pause with this thought in mind. The Church's commitment to children was a message, and this is part of the message. This is what I want to leave you with as a blessing before we have a meal. We believe that the world was created by God and it was good, that human beings are to care for it, that God loved the world so much that he sent Jesus. And at the end of the Bible, there's a promise of how God intends the world to be. A river, water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne. Either side of the river, the tree of life, with 12 kinds of fruit, and leaves for the healing of the nations. You need to help the church in this. This is the letter to children and young people, not only by stopping things getting worse, but also by holding in your minds the better world that the Bible describes for you. And so thank you so much for playing your part, Kiran and Anouk. Please hold in mind that God has promised a better world. The prayer that Jesus taught us to pray, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven, he did not give us in vain. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much, Keith, for moderating this session. And big thanks to panelists, of course. It's my pleasure to now inform you that the WCC is inviting you for a buffet lunch, which is served near the entrance here in the lobby. I would also like to inform you that we have the honor of welcoming around 80 children from the Greek school in Geneva and in Lausanne. These children are arriving now, between now and 12, and they have prepared a special song for His All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople. Therefore, may I please ask you to be back really in time for 1:20, 1 in order to be ready for their song. I also have the pleasure of informing you that the music group called Les Étourdillons, these are two wonderful musicians who have played for the Pope Francis Holy Mass in Palexpo. They have agreed to play music for you during the lunch break. Please enjoy.